Hello, everyone, and welcome to Whispering Wind Psychic Cowgirl. My name is Rev Melissa Kennedy. I am a psychic medium and spiritual practitioner. I give readings. I help people along their spiritual journeys, their spiritual paths. I am not your guru. I am someone who wants to give you the keys to your kingdom. I'm here to teach and to help people learn about their spiritual gifts and how they can use them to become their most authentic selves. And so with that being said, I'm on here today alone in the studio creating a podcast built from love. My podcast is Spiritual Awakening, Talk and Stories. And I've been doing this podcast on another venue. It was Anchor, and it was available on Spotify and anywhere else podcasts were available, but there was no video. And 3 years ago, my angels came to me and told me that I was to be on the airwaves. And so I complied and I started to create a podcast. But at the end of last year, they really pushed me into doing this on video, on camera. And I had gone to an Akashic Records mini class online. And so at the end of the class, the woman that was teaching the class gave everyone a mini reading from her Akashic Records guides. She gave everybody a message. So when it came from my message, she looked at me and she laughed. And she said, "You have a lot to say." And I laughed. And she said a few other things after that, but it was very brief. And I knew exactly what she was talking about because she said, this is what she said. She's like, "You need to get out there and get your messages out because you have a lot to say." And it's true. I really do have a lot to say. And that's why I'm making this podcast today alone in the studio. What I'm about to share here today is from my heart. It's truth. It's an experience that I had happened to me. And the reason I am sharing this is because I know that I am not alone. I know that there are many experiencers that have experiences like mine. I have some friends that also have experiences like this. And, similar threads, similar concepts, similar experiences, but yet different. But yet, the thing that I take away from my experience that nearly leveled me psychologically, had it not been for the help of some psychic friends during that, I probably quite literally could have been put into a psychiatric ward had I not had the spiritual help and the spiritual guidance that I needed at the particular time of my experience. So I just want to say before I get into my story that if you are afraid, if you have fear of paranormal things or perhaps supernatural things, unexplainable things, this is not your podcast. The mission of my sharing this story and telling this story is to bring awareness to experiences that we have as human beings in these physical bodies that people might not understand. But just because they're not understood does not make them untrue. It does not negate an experience that you may have experienced. And maybe your experience is a lot different than mine. Maybe you experience beings different than the ones I'm going to explain now in this podcast. But nevertheless, know that I sit in a seat of higher consciousness, higher understanding. And I know that I don't have the answers for everything. And I just want to remind you that nobody else has all the answers either. What we are all trying to do here is learn and to grow. And the only way we learn and to grow is to speak from our hearts, to share the experiences that we have that are not of this consciousness, this reality right now, but yet a lot of us are experiencing higher levels of consciousness and experiences that are unexplained. So, to bring you into the mindset I was in when this happened, when this experience happened to me, it was in 2019. And I had been set on my path to complete awakening, as I shared in another video on my YouTube channel about my complete opening up to my spiritual gifts, my psychic gifts, if you will, when my dad passed. And I realized that I was a psychic medium. So my quest in learning about everything, how I could use these gifts to help others, I was well onto that path at the time of this experience. And everything was going along quite swimmingly, beautifully. There was a lot of, beautiful experiences. Yes, there were rainbows, unicorns, and kittens, if you want to get technical. Everybody jokes around about, it's rainbows, unicorns, and kittens for the spiritual people. But at that particular time, I had experienced things at a younger age that were frightening and unexplainable, and I just kind of blocked everything out. But with this experience that took place, it was so real. I had been immersing myself when I wasn't studying spiritual topics or reading about spiritual topics. I would listen to podcasts at night. And so on this particular night, which just happened to be December 24th, 2019, Christmas Eve, this is when I had this experience. So I fell asleep listening to a podcast from James Gilliand from Ascetti Ranch. And I don't know him. I just know of him. So I was curious. So I was listening to his podcast. So I needed to take a sip of tea. So just bear with me. And so as I listened, I fell asleep, which happens. It's late at night. I had fallen asleep. And so not long after I had fallen asleep, I was awakened to a sound that sounded straight out of Star Wars. That's the only way I can explain it. It was, and before the lightsaber opens up and Darth Vader's light sword opens, that noise like that. That's what woke me up. And then I saw this being, a dark being, out of the corner of my eye. And I was like, everything in my body wanted to run away. But there was a being in my room. And I heard, relax. But everything in my being said, don't relax. But at that particular moment, there was nothing else I could do. I was sucked out of my room, full body. My dog was sleeping with me in my bed, and the force from this, whatever or whoever these beings were that came in to take me, sucked me out, and my dog was spinning along with me. I could feel her. So fast forward to 3-hour lapse of time. I wake up and I'm shell-shocked. And it's Christmas morning. And it's probably about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just laying there thinking, what in the world just happened? I am a sovereign being living my human life. I was mad. I was angry. I was questioning everything. Not because I did not believe that there were other worldly beings. That's what I like to call them. Otherworldly or other dimensional beings. Not that I never believed in that, because from an early age, I knew that we were not alone in the universe. And, as we go along, there's a lot of people sharing their stories. If you go on YouTube, many people in the forefront of sharing their paranormal experiences with ETs or otherworldly beings or beings of other dimensions. And I really did equate it to the D. Okay, so dimensions, and then there's G. So in other words, my phone was on, that's what I was listening to the podcast on, and it's my theory. I came to the conclusion that these phones, these devices that we carry around with us, are on a different frequency and open portals that allow these beings to enter into our dimension. Okay? So, can I prove this? No. Do I have scientific proof to prove it? No, I don't. But I'm a thinking human being. I question everything. I'm always looking for truth. I'm always looking for answers. And that is my logical brain experiencing and then trying to figure things out. So you can imagine, so it's Christmas morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's my day gonna be like, you know? So I shared with my mom what happened, and of course she believed me. She was really the only one I really told. And but then it got so bad, like after that, you know, because I started to get post-traumatic stress about falling asleep at night. I couldn't sleep, thinking that I'm going to be taken again, and knowing that this had been going on my whole life. I mean, I just put it all together after this experience, but I wasn't aware. And I had an experience as a young woman. I was driving down the highway, and this bright light was out in the distance. It came in, and it kept getting closer and closer and closer until it was right in front of my vehicle. And then lapse of time, and then I'm still driving, and I'm like, what in the world happened? And like an hour's time had gone by, but that was way back, like that was in my early 20s. So to get back to this, so it brought me to this post-traumatic stress. So I reached out to a psychic friend, and she helped me a lot. If it were not for her, I quite possibly could have lost my mind. That's how traumatic it was. And so about a week later, I had another experience happen. And to backtrack, I think I actually contacted her after the second experience, because at that time I was like, oh gosh, that's what it was. I got to do something about this. So anyway, the second experience I had, these beings had already come in, and I thought they were in my room, but I learned afterwards that I was in the fort, like another dimension. So I was actually out of my body, but in another dimension. So these beings were standing around me, and they placed a helmet, like an old diver's helmet, over my head, and I was ready for them, because I commanded them to leave me alone in the name of Jesus Christ. And when I did that, these beings just looked at me, and I was like, oh gosh, that's not going to work. So they proceeded to put this helmet over my head, and they injected this big long needle in the back of it, and I felt it go into my skull, and all of the liquid went into my body. And then when I came back, I was sick for several days. I just did not feel well at all. And I had reached out to that friend at that time. And I want to say that I felt so alone. I felt so isolated. Who do you tell? Who do you tell about things like this? You know, we feel so alone. We feel so isolated. And then if you reach out to people in certain spiritual communities, they will actually make you feel like you brought it upon yourself, or there's no such thing. They will even go so far as to tell you there's no such thing. Well, I'm here to tell you, when I experience something and it's this traumatic and this real, there's nobody on earth that's going to tell me there is no such thing. When you have an experience that changes you forever, and you become angry, and you're searching for answers, and you want to stop what's happening to you, there's nobody that's going to tell you what happened to you was not real. So if you've experienced anything, my heart goes out to you. If you've had people that have told you it's not real, you're imagining things, my heart goes out to you. It really does. And I feel you, and I understand. I may not understand your experience completely, but I understand from a soul level, because I've had experiences in my life. But this is just one that I wanted to share. It's been on my heart. It's been on my mind. And so I write. I've always written to express myself. I'm a poet. I have not written a book yet, but that is in the making. But I did write about this experience, and I'm going to read to you what I wrote. It comes from the depths of my spirit, the depths of my heart, the depths of my soul, to what I experienced after I was taken. And here's what I wrote. It's called Into the Rabbit Hole. That's what I called it. And down, 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 into the rabbit hole I go. There is no magic mushroom. Only sober reality resides within the very reaches of the soul. Alice has nothing on me. Spiraling down, down, down into the depths of the rabbit hole. Was reality ever really real? The physical eye now betrays you. Visions now eyes wide open and closed tightly shut. Your physical ears heightened chaos. If only you could call Alice. Could she help you? Would reality be less trippy, bizarre? Down, 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 into the rabbit hole I go. What will emerge when the soberly insane visions become your new forever reality? For there may never be what your eye did see before you spiraled down, down, down into the rabbit hole of your psychic reality. The dreamer is now the equivalent of the living dream, or so it may seem. Emerging from the rabbit hole, you peek above the earth's cold depths. Is it safe to emerge? Only Alice really knows. Just have to stop because every time that I read that, it stirs what I felt in my being. I felt so alone. Just gotta gather myself together here. But I'm not alone. And I'm sharing my story. You know, it takes a lot of courage to share a story like that. And I really don't care what people think of me. I don't care what anybody thinks of me anymore. I know that this is my journey. I know that this is my reality. I know that this is my level of consciousness. Okay? Because there are different layers of consciousness. And some people are not aware. I wish them well. But for some reason, I was chosen to become aware. And I felt from the very beginning, there was no explanation as to why this happened to me. The only explanation I could come up with was, in the future, I would help others to understand that they are not alone. And that is why I made this podcast alone in my studio. I'm not alone, and either are you. So if you have experienced something that's unexplained and you're ashamed or you're afraid to share, keep following, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I am gathering people together. I am calling my people to me. I have a rather large spiritual tribe already. I know many people who are well into their psychic journey, into their spiritual awakening journey. And I do say journey, and spiritual awakening is something that is lifelong. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody at this particular time in history knows everything. So if you go to somebody seeking answers, seeking help, and they don't understand you, and they try to diminish you, find someone else. There's somebody out there that can help you. I'm here if you need someone to talk to. Feel free. My website has been streaming on the bottom of this podcast from the beginning, and I promise you, I understand. I have learned to clear a lot of things that are not rainbows, unicorns, and kittens. And it hasn't been pleasant. And I don't like it. But it's something that needs to be done. And there are only a certain few teachers and spiritual teachers that will talk about things that aren't just unicorns, rainbows, kittens, And I'm one of them. So, with that being said, Reverend Melissa Kennedy signing off. Until next time, I'm wishing you light, love, peace, and blessings of all kinds. Bye-bye now.